You cannot be in a diet mindset all year round. You will drive yourself nuts. You will eventually faceplant because you're going to end up in a situation where you're frustrated, you're too stressed because like Becca said, you're just piling things on, you're trying to do all the things all the time, and then you're going to end up with the F it mentality and crash and burn.
Yeah, well, I think you just go back and forth constantly. You go back and forth between like trying to push, it lasts for maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks if you're lucky, and then something happens and you burn out and then you go completely the opposite direction. So we talked about this, like law of averages, you kind of end up in the same place all the time versus working on truly changing your life. And if you have been that type of person that like it's never the right time, well, now is the right time then, because you're never going to accept a time as the right time. And so you need to just realize that you're always going to see things as being an obstacle or a problem. And so you have to just dive in. You have to commit and just dive into something, whether it's working with someone, whether it's consistently following a plan, because things get easier as you go. It's never, like easy peasy piece of cake, but things do get easier the more you commit to doing them and the more routines that you start to build. And I think that when you have fail proofs in place in terms of, okay, I'm following this protocol, and when I go on vacation, not thinking that you're going to be perfect with the protocol. Like Liz and I both approach vacations in terms of, I'm going to keep a lot of the habits in place that I already have because I know they make me feel good, but I'm also not going to not enjoy, a little bit of ice cream with my family on a summer vacation that we're on, or a glass of wine or two on date night that I get once every 5 months. Like, it's, I'm not going to restrict myself of those things because I'm trying to be perfect, because that's when people experience burnout. It's when you can create realistic expectations of yourself that are not complete self-sabotage, because I think everyone knows what those look like. The screw it mentality, I'm going to eat this huge plate of burger and fries. I'm going to have a huge piece of cake for dessert. I'm going to also have 3 or 4 drinks, because just screw it. What's the point, right? It's more so, where is my baseline that keeps me in a good spot? And where can I push a little bit when I feel like I have the capacity to? And where can I maybe take from a little bit when I feel like, I'm on vacation this time, or it's a holiday, or we are moving our house, or I'm switching jobs, or things are just crazier than normal. Because again, you cannot just keep adding on your plate. It's not realistic. And that's where people burn themselves out. They end up face planting into all of their bad habits again, versus, okay, maybe this wasn't perfect. Maybe this was not what I wanted for this. But maybe I also had too big of expectations for myself that were unrealistic, and I was bound to fail because that's what I do, right? I give myself way too hard of expectations because I think I can be perfect regardless of the situation, and then I'm a failure. And that's that conversation we have with ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it's also really important if you do have significant others or, your spouse or very close friends, whoever it is that you are spending a lot of your social time with, you have support from them. You communicate with them what your goals are, because if you would just expect them to automatically understand, you're going to be really frustrated, and it's going to at some point turn into some sort of argument. So I know that Becca has done the same, but communicating with our significant others, hey, here's what I, have going on with my protocol right now. And if we want to do date night, this would be the best night to do it. Or I can then, adjust accordingly if we have something coming up, so that they understand and they're not upset at you because you don't want to go out to eat every Thursday night, right? Or every Friday night, or whatever that might look like. And a big part of this communication is not that they have to understand fully, but that they can just be supportive. And a lot of times I know my husband's like, just let me know what you need from me. I'm here to support you. Sometimes that looks like I'm eating a different dinner. Not all the time, because a lot of times the boys will, just eat what I have, and then they'll add something that I may not be having. But without that communication, you're going to find yourself faltering more and more, because you're going to expect yourself to just be so strong. And every person can be mentally strong in a lot of ways for a period of time, but you are human. And if you don't have support, you're eventually going to get to that place where you're just like, forget it. Let's just go out tonight. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing that a lot of people don't do that is harmful is they don't evaluate how much improvement has been made. Mm-hmm. We're seeking perfection. We're looking for what is my perfect scenario. I'm going to go on vacation. I'm going to work out every day. I'm not going to have a touch of alcohol. I'm going to, go to a grocery store and make all of my meals. And then you go out to eat and, you get a salmon and vegetables and you have a glass of wine. But 3 years ago, you would have gotten drunk and fallen asleep at the dinner table and, then woken up and ordered a pizza. Like, I see improvement there. I don't know about anyone else, but like, maybe I'm reflecting my own life. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, it's so true. We would go out to dinner. So we would go out to dinner, and I'm going to totally embarrass us, but right now, this is sad. We would go out to dinner to like Sullivan's Steakhouse, have a couple of drinks, like strong drinks, like martinis, come home and be like, let's order pizza, or like, let's order tacos, or like, just to get those like the drunk munchies.
Yes. All the time. Nick and I, all the time. We would go to this place called Wild Monk in downtown LaGrange, which is so much fun. They have a beer menu. This is when I used to drink beer. And I would basically just pick the highest alcohol content beers. I didn't even know what they tasted like, but that's what I would pick. And I would get super drunk and I would be so bloated, I remember. But I would go and, we'd order pizza on the way home, or we'd order, stop at Burger King or McDonald's because it was right by the house that we had lived in at the time. Like, you guys, Liz and I come from a past. Okay. That is not what our current situation is.
And my gut would not handle what we used to do.
Oh, no.
Oh my God. I would not be able to handle all the fried food, all the beer, because I was a beer girl too. Like, I loved IPAs, sours. Anyways, I can't handle any of that stuff anymore, but that's okay. There's other options, right?
But again, back to the main point. Look at comparison wise. Like, have you made large improvements? Because that's something to be proud of versus what everyone focuses on is their failures.
Yeah.
You focus on what you haven't done well. You focus on what could have been better, which can be helpful, obviously. If something kind of really derailed, like, it can give you some learning opportunities. But you have to also evaluate, how much better have I done than I used to do? And what I would challenge you on is how that continues to evolve. Because I think that's where you see the real growth over time. Like, am I where I ultimately want to be? No, not really. But I don't know if that'll ever happen, because then I'll stop chasing something, right? But my normal right now of what vacations looks like, or what my normal time frame of like life and how I exist in life looks like, is much improved than it was 2 years ago. My choices, my vacation mindset, like all of that. And so that's how you identify, are you doing good here, right? Like, are you winning in this? Are you consistently seeing yourself improve over time? No one's ever going to be perfect. That's just, you're setting yourself up for failure at that point. But are you measuring? Because otherwise you don't know. Like, how are you measuring those things? How consistency things are? How, are you just going off the scale? Because that's not helpful. Like, are you going off of symptoms? Are you going off of how consistently you're taking in enough water and doing electrolytes? And I think for a lot of people, when you feel better.
You're close. I was actually just talking with one of my coaches about it. Like, Becca and I have been talking about this too, just like for us. For me, I feel my best between my period and ovulation. Like, I feel lean.
Same.
I feel like I'm in a smaller size clothes. Man, 3 days later, bam, I could just feel, totally opposite. And it's unrealistic when you look at the data, which I think is important to look at the scale. If you are tracking your weight as one point of data, it is not the measure of success. As Becca is saying, like, you think about all of your symptoms, you think about the habits that you have in place, you think about other things that you're doing consistently that maybe you weren't before. That's getting to the gym or pooping more regularly, right? Sleeping through the night better, having better periods, all of these things that people fail to see as huge wins because they're solely focused on they're not there yet. And if you stay in that mentality of I'm not there yet, but you stay in that mentality from a place of like resentment, you're going to make your journey a lot harder, just mentally and emotionally, right? Because you just get to a place where you start to get angry. But if you can get into the mentality of like, you're continuing to chase this goal because there is no end date, as we talked about last Friday, like you get there when you get there, you're going to evolve along the way. You're going to uncover layers of your onion that you want to, work on and improve. And sometimes that's physical and sometimes it's more mental, emotional, right? Sometimes it's internal in terms of your systems of the body and just really, truly optimizing health, maybe preparing for pregnancy or, whatever that situation may be, coming off birth control, for example, right? So it's really important to think about how are you looking at this? I'm not there yet. Am I looking at it? I'm not there yet and I'm angry because I haven't been perfect. And so I beat myself up because I expect myself to be perfect, or I'm not there yet because I continue to evolve and therefore my expectations, I continue to raise the bar, right? And what we want for everybody listening to this podcast is to continue to raise the bar, to continue to challenge the norm, to continue to ask questions, right? And seek answers that are data driven. And for a lot of people, they struggle to do this because they don't track the right data. And this is something that we've put into, our program in terms of tracking biofeedback and, other things besides just the scale. Your pictures, how your clothes fit, when you feel good. And so it's embracing that and finding joy in that, man, things are working. Even though today might be a rough day, if I take a step back and I look at things from a neutral place, I can now say, I'm freaking proud of myself because the last 2 months, here's the things I've accomplished. Even though every day hasn't been perfect and every day hasn't been rainbows and butterflies and you didn't feel like doing it and you're kind of resentful towards your body, like why you got to be doing these things that seem so hard. We hear this all the time from our clients. We've walked that path ourselves, but you step back and you say, okay, last year, for example, at this time, am I better off than I was? And then you be proud of that. And then if you're not, you get your shit together, Carol, and you start to do the things that you keep saying that you want to do, and you start to take massive radical action, or don't be mad that you're not making progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's constant self-evaluation. And I really do not think that there is any other way to find growth. You have to be self-critical with a dose of love and, being understanding of yourself in situations sometimes, but you need to evaluate and you need to not always see the negative. You need to not always beat yourself up if you're not perfect, but are things improving? Am I making that higher baseline each month, each year, that I'm putting things on while being mindful of my stress, while being mindful of all of these other things that are going on in my life so that I don't end up burned out. I don't end up giving up. I don't end up in a place where I just resent food, my body, and everything around me.